Hi, everyone. Welcome to this session, which features a discussion between John Snyder and Dr. David Sutherland. I'm going to introduce the two of them very briefly and let them get on with the conversation, trying to interrupt as little as possible. Let's start with John Snyder. John Snyder is the president of Tweed Recording in Athens, Georgia, and a Grammy Award-winning record producer with half a century of experience in the music industry. He's worked in a range of roles as a musician, lawyer, producer, music executive, educator, and artist manager. And he's a proponent of creative education, arts entrepreneurship, and the broader creative economy, among other things. Dr. David Sutherland spent 30 years as an entrepreneur, a corporate executive, and an advisor to a whole host of very successful companies. And for the past 10 years, he's lectured at the Terry College of Business, their graduate school at the University of Georgia. And he's lectured on entrepreneurship, business innovation, and creative economy. And it's through the entrepreneurship program, I think I might have met him for the first time a little less than 2 years ago. I will get them started and then let them get discussing about intellectual property, creative economies, and so on. I want to first put in a question, which is to define for the audience who may be not as well versed with these terms, what is creative economy compared to creative industry, and how is it that the two of you, came to talk about this topic together, and in what ways are your views different from the ways people normally talk about creative economy?
Well, for me, the creative economy is derived from the Constitution of the United States. In Article 1, Section 8, it lists the 18 powers of Congress, and one of them is to promote the progress of science and useful arts by securing for limited times to authors and inventors the exclusive right to their respective writings and discoveries. And from this, we get copyright law, trademark law, and patent law. And so that's, for me, that's the fountainhead of that economy. It does include patents, so that's by far the majority, where the majority of the money is, but it is a third of the GDP, so it is trillions of dollars. What we usually think of as arts and other forms of creative expression is copyright. And we can talk more about that as time goes on. I think that's also the major difference between the way we look at it and say the way the Americans for the Arts look at it. They would include the economy, the creative economy, to be the businesses around the arts. There's like justification for the arts in a sense, but it's much bigger than that. That's about 2% of the GDP. But when you include all the patent law and Apple and Google and all that, it gets to be a much bigger percentage. So
yeah, I think
that's the how I would put it. David, what about it?
yeah, and I think if you were to extract, and as John said, we basically start with the fundamental right of every individual to be creative. Right. And what we know to be true is creativity is an innate need that people have, that research has been done that shows that people who are more creative tend to have a better sense of wellness and so on. We also know that when people have their ability to create taken from them, it affects them psychologically and mentally. So at a very basic human level, there's this need to create. We get into it, like at the business school. I'm at this juncture between MBA students and artists, and MBA students will look at it one way. Obviously, artists will look at it another way, but the two come together at the point you were talking about, Anna, is this distinction between creative economies and creative industries. Well, an economy is a collection of industries. And so we can think about creative industries as the music industry, the film industry, culinary industry. We now can talk about it in terms of design as an industry and so on. But like John said, when we think of it in this broader sense, we're talking about trillions, globally, trillions of dollars that are generated through these different endeavors that lead into creative industries and then overall creative economies. So that's kind of how I think about it. But getting back to what John said, the basic element around the freedom of expression and then creative expression. And as he mentioned, this is in our Bill of Rights in the U.S. anyway, to have that. And so I think as much as anything, we're looking for value on one end as a creative economy. What's the potential monetized value of it? But at the same time, we understand that creative expression is essential to individuals and to humans. That we might think about it, a creative expression as a hobby. Like I play guitar. I love to play guitar. Every once in a while I'll sit in with a band or whatever, but to me it's a hobby. John and I run into people all the time who have this hobby, but they want it to be their business. It is their passion. They want it to be their business. And so that's something we think a lot about.
It's true that the rights that flow from that constitutional provision are the rights of a business. So as soon as you create something original and make it tangible, you get 5 exclusive rights through the operation of federal copyright law. And they are the right to distribute, the right to copy, the right to publicly perform, publicly display, and make derivatives. These are the rights of the publisher. So you are automatically a business. Yes, you don't have the money that Universal has, and you don't have the outreach, and you don't have the assets, but you have the same rights. And it's possible that those rights could be monetized. But more to the point, creative education and at the youngest age is kind of the ultimate goal for me, because we all have that capacity, as David pointed out, to be creative. It's something that we're born with, and yet people will be heard to say that they're not creative. Well, they might not have been educated in a way to cause them to be thoughtfully creative, but everybody is creative. It's part of your thinking process, even for people who don't manifest it by painting pictures or taking photographs or writing music. You do creative thinking in everything you do, trying to figure out pathways and methods to solve problems. So I think that what I would hope from this conversation and from the greater realization of the creative economy is that we bring back the idea of individual education. It's difficult when you're living in a system of industrialized education because you've got so many people to educate, but still, in that system, we can find ways to educate people creatively. For example, teaching somebody that 5 + 5 is 10 is not the same thing as saying x + x = 10. So in one way, it's an answered question. The other way, it's a question. So I think that creative education could be thought of as how to ask questions. And if we can do that on a wider scale, I think we'll have more people creating original works and therefore sharing them and therefore creating an empathetic value exchange. Because if you want somebody to care about what you're saying, you need to care about them. And that could create the value exchange of empathy as well as financial. But from this, maybe we'll become a more peaceful society.
Do you think can I ask a question? So sorry.
Yeah.
Where is the disconnect, do you think? Because both of you have emphasized that the right to creative expression is protected in your constitution. Yet you're also emphasizing that not enough people are doing this in a way that guarantees them perhaps not guarantees, but like gives them the tools they need to monetize this in an effective way for themselves. Is that where the issue is? Or do you see the issue as both people not expressing themselves or finding ways to do so, and also not knowing how to set things in course and in action in order to sort of realize their potential in order to be successful, gain wealth, and so on? So where do you see there's a lot of everything is not working? Or what if you're trying to create an environment that promotes the creative economy? What are you hoping to target in this whole, starts with the individual and goes all the way up to knowledge accruing the necessary knowledge and connecting in the necessary ways with people in the community. So where do you see, is there anything here that's going well? What can be improved? What's missing completely? If you could, both of you could speak to that and discuss that.
Yeah, I think, to me, I don't think any of it's going well, or it could go better. Everything could go better. If you think about it, as John said, it's the innate ability to create and how that's nurtured, and is it being nurtured or not being nurtured? Let's say it is being nurtured. Let's say an individual, and John and I work with people like this all the time, an individual decides that she wants to be a visual artist, she wants to be a painter, and has a talent at that. Decides maybe goes to school, maybe a 2-year school, maybe a 4-year school, graduates and continues to do her artwork, her painting, but at the same time is not at a point where she can live off that. She can survive off the money she's making from painting. And so what happens with a lot of artists, if they do flourish at their younger age, right? Let's say, okay, I've learned I have this innate capability, I'm going to kind of do something with it. They don't really know how to focus it as a business. And so I'm using the example of the young artist, John, you and I just recently worked with, who was doing her art, her painting. She was playing in a band. She was a musician. She was doing some performing art. She was doing occasionally doing commercials and things like that. And her real sustained salary was coming from working at a restaurant. So here she is, she's working 4 different things. And yet when John and I sat her down and said, where's your passion? Is your passion around, being a waitress at a restaurant? No, it's not. I do that because I need to eat. Is it being a performing artist? Well, I like doing that, but the gigs are so hard and rare. What about the band? Well, I could take it or leave it, but I'm really into my visual art. My visual art is the thing I want to do. And so, working with her and coaching her, we helped her to focus her visual art business. And now she's thriving and really, really excelling because she had that kind of nudge to go with where her passion was, which was her art. And so at the individual level, it's oftentimes just understanding, that you have to take a leap of faith and go for it. The other thing, and I think we'll get into this, is so what are the things you can plug into in your location, in your ecosystem, your creative ecosystem, that will help you to achieve that level of success? I mean, in the creative economy, what we do is we say, you're living in Athens, Georgia. In order to be a single person in Athens, Georgia, and to have a livable income, this is what you're going to need to make. Can you make that from your painting? If yes, how are you going to do that? And so helping them to understand that there's a livable income, threshold you probably need to achieve. It's different in every location. But then what is it going to take you to achieve that? And what are the elements of the creative ecosystem that you can plug into that will assist you in achieving that? I took it to that level, John. It was kind of at that personal level, but I know you have other things.
No, I think that's true. And talking to our friend, the painter, she was, when she came to me to talk about her band, she was concerned about how to cause the band to be more productive, and that the other people in the band were not really holding their own. And just by questioning her, she revealed that she was painting these pictures, and it seemed obvious that that's where her heart lay. So I always told my students, find something you love, get good at it, and use it to help other people. And from this will come not just a job or a career, but a life. And you don't necessarily have to create for a living. Creativity is something that happens every day to every person. And some people want to make it their focus in life, and therefore they have to derive money from it. They have to monetize their passion. But others,
as I remember, John, she was painting drum heads for bands.
That's right.
She was painting the bass drum head for bands, and becoming very well known for that.
That's right.
And that was kind of where John took her, was like, well, why aren't you just painting?
Do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what she's doing. But so the idea is that creativity is not something just for so-called artists. And the idea arts, the word arts is almost dividing in a sense that they're artists and they're not artists. I don't agree with that. I think everybody has that artist personality. I think some people have more skill sets, just like in athletics or anything else, that lead them to focus on it. But creativity and creative thinking and creative expression are very democratic and very for much everybody. It's about the individual. That is what you are. So David and I are working on this prison fellowship plan where we're trying to bring the creative expression to the to marginalized kids, and because basically the organization was focusing on sports, so we suggested creative expression, and now we're engaging in that. And to me, that is what gives you your you. That is what is who you are, and it's by virtue of creative expression, you might develop a self-confidence and a self-sufficiency and a self-respect that may allow you to be more respectful of others as you share your work with them. So I'm all about monetizing passion. I'm also all about passion. So yeah, David's right though. If you want to make a living at it, you have to know that it is a business, and you have to understand how to run that business. And the fact is that most creative people are not very good at that. So they
Most
might
creative,
partner up.
yeah, most creative people are anti-business. A lot of them are. So that's what I was saying. I can't have an MBA student that doesn't understand the creative expression, work with them, because they'll come at it from an MBA numbers kind of. But going
Yeah.
back
They don't really
to
teach. I'm sorry, Dave.
no, I wanted to go back, really, John, this, one of the things, Anna, that we're seeing right now is that there are so many new and different channels, right, for individuals to express themselves, to have, to distribute their work, whatever it might be, and it's to us, it's exciting. It gives opportunity. It does defragment to some extent the old industries, the film industry, the music industry, and so on. But it also makes it a little bit harder. And as John said, the first step is people don't even understand their need to protect their intellectual property. And I think, having John talk about this would be important. We find a lot of people are putting their art onto Facebook or YouTube or whatever, and they don't understand the implications of their ownership once they do that kind of thing. And creatives, if nothing else, John, I think you would agree, they need to understand intellectual property and what they have and what they need to do to protect it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But
Can you speak more on intellectual property, John?
Yeah, I mean, the rights, first of all, copyright attaches to all forms of creative expression, and there are only 8 in the statutes, and you can kind of guess what they are. I mean, there's literary, there's visual, there's audiovisual, there's sound recordings, compositions and songs, choreography and pantomime, because you can write it down, architecture, and dramatic works. So if you write in any of those areas and you make it tangible, copyright doesn't protect an idea, it protects the expression of an idea. Once that idea is expressed, then the rights of the statutes attach. And like I said, the right to copy and distribute means to make public, and so that's why you're a publisher. And so what the songwriter is doing, and the recording artist is doing, and also the author and the painter are doing, if they're selling their work, is they're transferring those rights. So they're taking those individual 5 rights. There's a 6th right for sound recordings, digital transmission, but they're transferring those rights to other parties and other businesses who can monetize those rights more effectively. So what I've been trying to, I think David has too, is that we need more aggregators of intellectual property. We don't need a lot of miniature publishers and fancy publishers running around. We need to have mass, and that's what publishers and major publishers are. But this community could have a production library or a publishing company or a publisher of literary works. We could organize that business. And if the business schools throughout the country would teach IP management as well as management. They teach disciplines and not businesses most of the time, but that particular business is so huge and such a big part of the economy, it probably deserves more attention in law schools and in business schools.
Do you think people have a false sense that if they post something on, let's say, Facebook or Twitter, because they have posted it, they somehow believe that this is mine and this intellectual property belongs to me, and that's part of the problem, and that they don't really know what it means to, I don't know, TikTok is an example, right? People are actually producing a lot of creative content there, videos, music, and doing things like that. So you think, well, when they put it out there, they seem to believe perhaps, and I don't know if it's true, and I wonder if you comment on it, all of these super accessible medias are perhaps making it also a little bit harder. On one hand, it makes it easier to express yourself. On the other hand, it makes it much harder to think about protecting your intellectual property.
Well, the curse of the artist is anonymity, not piracy. So nobody's going to steal your stuff until you've already become known. So it's kind of a progressive tax in that sense. But it is true that when you post your stuff to Facebook, whether it's visual, any of those categories, you are giving them permission, because you clicked I agree, to use that in any form, in any way that they wish, without compensation, without notification. And then that's the deal. But you don't care because nobody knows who you are anyway. Now, it's also true that, like in music technology courses in high schools and middle schools in the state of Georgia, the teacher may publish the works of the students on SoundCloud. That starts a certain clock running for purposes of registration. There are consequences to that. So one of the things, well, the missions that I have and we have at Tweed is to inform those teachers that there is such a thing as copyright, and that their students are creating copyrights, and that these are monetizable works, and that after you publish something, you have 6 months to register that work with the Library of Congress, or you take the risk of losing statutory damages in the case of the infringement lawsuit. That's all a long shot. Most music doesn't have that kind of success, but some of it does. And so the question is, are you aiming at success, or are you aiming at failure? I mean, if you don't care, that's fine. You just want people to share. You want people to hear your music. I don't want to make money. I just want you to hear it. There's nothing wrong with that. But for the artist who wants to make a living, the photographer who wants to make a living, if you post your stuff to Facebook, you've just transferred rights. You might want to think twice about it.
Yeah, I think, and again, to me, it's what you don't know, right? That comes back to bite you down the road. But at the same time, as John is saying, it is a lever that's available to you to have a business out of your creative expression, to create a business out of your creative expression. And if it was known, as John was saying, with some of the recording engineers and so on at Tweed, if they don't know this, yeah, down the road they may run into some issue or problem. But if they do know it, they can leverage that and use that and sell those rights and manage the rights to whatever they create in a way that gives them income, or provides income to them. The other part of this too, Anna, is as we think about it in terms of creative industries within a creative economy, those industries tend to be, John used the term aggregator. John and I both firmly believe the role of the aggregator is paramount. They are the individual, the publisher at the top of the heap, so to speak, that can take that intellectual property and help you to leverage it, to gain more from it, to position it in the marketplace, to value it in the marketplace, and so on. And the role of the aggregators know who they are, and they know what they do, and they know how they do it. The problem is that the artists themselves don't understand the role of aggregators. They don't understand that they are this is where the rubber hits the road. And if you're not aware of how they work, what they do, and so on, you can be abused. Artists have been. There's a number of cases where, as you know, where artists have gotten to the aggregator and really been taken advantage of. And so understanding that from the beginning, from your own kind of creative process, then introducing that creation into this marketplace, this economy, these industries, and so on. There's roles that are being played there that need to be understood by the individual artists. And so we will talk about the aggregator kind of at the top, you, the artist, down here, and then there's all these other pieces that happen along the way. And so the industry, so we might talk about the film industry. It's something that John and I have been working on, is to better integrate the film industry in Athens, Georgia. We have writers who write scripts. We have individuals who do the cinematography work, can do that. We have producers. We have everything, all the way up to distribution, to the aggregator level. But none of these pieces are coordinated. You know, everybody's working individually, and somebody will come along and say, oh, I need a writer, I need a script writer, I need a location manager, but what we feel is important is that in creative ecosystems like Athens, Georgia, we need to consider how to vertically integrate all of these different capabilities. Because if we can do that, then the individual artist, with whatever he or she might create, has this integrated capability that they can plug into, and again, with the awareness of their intellectual property, their rights, and so on, they would be able to work faster and more effective in getting their idea out into the marketplace. So these structures for creative industries, you know, we understand them. It's not like they're new. Hollywood's been around for quite a while, right? So we know how they work. We just don't educate people on them. We don't inform people about them. We don't identify the different roles, and particularly the role of that aggregator, and how that is so important in them getting value from their creative idea.
So aggregator is a publisher, but there's also these aggregators, the content platforms. So as David has said many times, content is king. I mean, that's obvious. But the problem is there's been a huge movement of money away from the creative creators to the platforms.
Right.
Facebook and Google and the rest of them have just sucked up all this content. The transfer of wealth has probably been scores of billions of dollars in the last decade. So it's really not right. But there's not, I don't know what we do about that. But in a sense, we're all creators and consumers of art and creative expression. So we're kind of in this together. But the platforms, I think, have made it almost impossible to monetize that work. Now, if you have a certain number of subscribers, a certain number of views, whatever, you can create some wealth from it. And there are guys and people, women doing that right now. But for the most of us, anybody on Spotify is not going to make money unless there's hundreds of millions of streams. That is not right. And so the people who are making the money are not the creators. They're the platforms. They're the labels who made deals with the Spotify and the others. They get equity in the company in exchange for a lower royalty rate. Right. So who loses on that deal? The artist loses because they've always lost, and they will always lose until they take charge of their own work. And that is very difficult because everybody can't be that platform, that publisher. It's hard enough just to create the work, much less sell it, distribute it, monetize it, and make people aware of it. So it's kind of a problem. If you're going to make your living in the creative world, you're going to have to do 6 or 7 things. You can't just play guitar. You can't just write songs. You can't just do one thing. So that's another issue. And you know, where everything is on its head, the number one creators in this country are the teachers, and thus devalued. We do not evaluate that creative methodology of teaching. We turn those people into more or less wardens instead of people trying to awaken the creative expression of their students. I think there's a lot of problems there.
You both of you mentioned 2 things. One is the education side, the lack of knowledge as the thing that holds artists back to effectively, you know, capitalize on their talent and get the best deal possible for themselves, because that's the fairest thing to happen, that the person who creates it gets the best deal possible. One aspect is the fact that they don't know how to do this, and so that is the education part. But then if you're talking about aggregators and structures in place, I'm wondering how that is envisioned. Like, let's say in a town like Athens, Georgia, as a new person who came in, who's looking to make, I don't know, a small little documentary film, how would you plug yourself in to anything in terms of the local creative economy to know what to do? It feels very much like either you're educated about it and you know from the get-go what to do, or you have to be in the right circles and then you're fine. But it doesn't seem like there's any real or is there an example of cities or towns where a good structure exists that other towns can model themselves behind?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, because these structures, as you said, there's, as you said, the education piece, and we can speak to that, but the structures for creative industries, like I said, it's not that we don't understand these. We just have never really, and this is something John and I are doing, we've never really focused on them, these creative industries. So take an example, in Richmond, I think it's in Richmond, Virginia, John, Space Bomb, which is a music vertical. A group of people in Richmond, Virginia got together and said, hey, I'm a lyricist, I write songs, I'm a guitarist, I'm a drummer, I'm a recording, I have a recording studio. And so everybody was doing things, but they were doing their own things. But they came together and created this music vertical that takes them all the way from a concept or an idea to the distribution of that final product, that final music, and the aggregation of that. And that's an example. There are other examples in communities where people have come together and formed these project-based organizations or vertically integrated offerings, that has really helped people to understand how it works, where their value, how to get value, and to have a more equitable distribution of the value along that whole vertical chain of activities and events. That's an example, like Space Bomb. There are others out there that are doing it, and it's something, again, we're trying to help here in Athens, Georgia. Everybody thinks of Athens, Georgia as a music town, right? Where REM, the B-52s, et cetera, Widespread Panic. Yes, it is, but it's not a vertically integrated music town.
Mm-hmm.
And we think there's great opportunity in that.
It's not unusual. The same was true in New Orleans. I spent 15 years there, and a very creative place in all respects. I mean, just the way people dress, it's unique. And so you're talking about two different things here. How do you create content if you're a filmmaker? Those people can find themselves. They're grouped up here in Athens. David's working with them. But there's also the, after you have the content, how do you get attention for it? Yeah. So we're living in the attention economy, thanks to Google, who made probably, what, 20 billion last year selling our attention to advertisers. And so we're competing with that. How do we get people to pay attention to what we're doing? And so that's the trick. And there's social media. That's why we post on social media. That's why a lot of things happen that weren't in the past couldn't happen, because when I came up through the record business, the music business, there was 5 doors. Now there are no doors. Everybody can make their music and publish their music and market their music. And so it creates a lot of noise out there. How do you break through that? That's the challenge for creative people. And my answer to that is 1,000 true fans. You forget about the mass market. Yeah. There's no mass market. There's a million smaller markets, and you find yours. The long tail tells us that everything has its market. It may not be large, but it's still a dedicated group of followers. So if you can get that 1,000 true fans, it's an old concept, but it still has value. That you can spread the word, and basically it's one-to-one, and it's highly scalable because of the internet. So there's some amazing tools available to do that were not available to people when I was in my 20s and 30s. So I think that there's huge opportunities. I'm interested in the educational thing, which is, that's 6-year-olds. That's where I want to start. Cut them in, teach them how to write a song. And but as far as the creative economy goes and what's actually generating revenue, In the IP world, in the copyright world, it's the major companies. It's the music publishers are all making more money. The labels are making more money. So it's a rich ecology right now, not for the creators, but for the publishers. And so if we have more artist-based publishing, artist-based aggregators, United Artists in a sense, I think that there may be more financial security for artists than there is now.
Yeah, I think, yeah, John, the point of 1,000 true fans. I mean, oftentimes creatives look at the social platforms, social media as being their distribution channel, which yes, it can be, again, understanding. But then really what's important is on those platforms to create 1,000 true fans. Because once you've done that, there is this kind of economic, it's like a hurdle. Once you achieve 1,000 true fans who are going to come to your event or follow you on social media, they're going to kind of be there. Once you've done that, that's the opening to big things. Yeah. And this is something we need to be teaching as well. How do I get those 1,000 true fans? What is it I do through social media, social marketing to have those 1,000 true fans?
And it's one at a time. And so the idea is that, every business has two jobs, the acquisition and retention of customers. And then after you retain them, you're trying to shift the burden of marketing and promotion from the brand to the fan. So there's your internet. There's how you spread the word, is that they spread it. And word of mouth has always been a chief spreader of information, but this is what you have as an artist. And if you get one person and they get another person or two more people, you can see how it would network out. But get that 1,000 and you're trying to sell a ticket, you give your music away. The irony of today's world, the music world, is you're giving away the most expensive technology to sell the t-shirt, or to sell the ticket. And so it's not no longer a one-to-one exchange. It's I'll give you this if you give me this now to come to my show. And then that way I can engage you, get your email, get your contacts, keep my database, and keep in touch with it. Artists are not good at that. But if you want to be successful at it, you either find somebody in the business school who can help you out, or you're going to have to learn how to do it. And it's either that or get a job.
Yeah.
Do what you love. So find a way to do that. That's the message.
I like the emphasis, the 1,000 true fans, because the true is probably the thing to sort of fixate on, because I think a lot of people can be on social media and they have, like, I don't know, definitely over 1,000 followers. That might be pretty easy to get now, but they're not true fans. So you might be sort of, and they're probably following 1,000 other people, right? Like I think that's something to think about when, to emphasize the kind of concepts that people need to be keeping in mind then about, from the education side. I think it might also be a hard challenge because I suppose the economy and the way it looks and what the factors that are involved and all of the mediums that come up keep changing so much with the ages, right? So you could have a music school that was, unless you're keeping up with the times, then you're not necessarily, the teachers may not be equipped to be doing exactly what's useful for this time, this age, this global economy. I can imagine, again, I don't know enough about music schools or art schools, but they might, if you're in a big city, you're kind of lucky because those sort of spaces tend to, attract a lot of people coming in, a lot of innovation, a lot of interesting ideas. But if you're smaller set elsewhere, you could have a much more local focus, and then that kind of breaks away. So is there something in the education side that is, there's only so much you can expect from a sort of formal education, and there is these informal vocational, network-based education that people can rely on more, or probably need to, depending on where they are?
There's no copyright course in the Hodgkin School of Music. There's probably only one copyright course, or a theoretical copyright course, in the law school. They probably do not have a transactional copyright course. Now, I don't know, but I can tell you for sure that music schools do not teach those kids or those students how to monetize those talents. Yeah. I mean, I was in one for years, and I am one. And so there is no conversation about that. So at Loyola, we created a Bachelor of Music degree, but also a Bachelor of Science degree, where it was focused on the music business, not as being a performer. If you're trying to be a performer, then they're not teaching you that in the music schools. They're not teaching you how to monetize that skill set to make a living at it. So it's just something it's got to change. And I think
Yeah,
that, David,
it's very similar. You know, if we think about, you know, visual arts, going back to the person that we were coaching, who suddenly excelled at her artwork. She had never had a business course. She had never, you know, she didn't really understand business. She could balance her checkbook. She got that, but she couldn't create a budget. She didn't know about, you know, projecting, you know, cost of doing business, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And these aren't hard concepts. It's just nobody's ever spent the time teaching it. And so she went through 4 years of art school, performing art school, et cetera, and never had a business course. Once she got through this and she started to make money off of her art, she began to realize I need to manage myself like a business. And so she started going online and finding different things. But she had so much passion about the need to bring this business side together with this creative side that she's now in a program that combines an MBA with a Master of Fine Arts. And this is a new movement. She's at the University of Charleston. University of Colorado Boulder has a program in this. UT Austin has a program in this. And what they do, you come for 2 years and you get an MFA and an MBA, with the intent that when you leave, you become someone who can work in that creative industry, whatever that creative industry is you're interested in. This is fairly new, but again, it's coming at a time where it's so important. And as you said, you know, John and I go way back. You know, we're the guys who not only talk of floppy disks, but we might talk of payola or whatever, you know, in the music industry. But you know, we are still seeing the changes, as you said, and helping people. I mean, as much as we can keep up with the changes, understand the implications of those changes on their businesses, on their pursuit of their passion, as John might say. And it's so important, and education needs to be focused on this as well.
even creative writing programs. In creative writing programs, every English college or English school has them. There's no copyright course.
No.
I mean, I published books at Loyola, and the teachers did not one thing about copyright. So it's like you're publishing, and you're an academic, so you publish in a journal. They understand copyright because you're signing away your rights to publish in their journal, and they don't even pay you. So it's like, well, that's an interesting situation, isn't it? So at Loyola, I argued every kid that came in, every student should get Business 101. Get the business course, learn how to deal with insurance and taxes. I mean, who's going to teach you that? I mean, you're going to go internet. That's where it's going to come out to be. But why not, you know, and relate courses to in a creative sense? Like you could teach history with a course in history of technology. You could teach ethics with the ethics in the arts course, or ethics of or aesthetics. I mean, there's just lots of ways of relating what's commonly thought of as the humanities to a more creative perspective. One course I created, the physics course, if you say the word physics to a student, they're going to shrivel up. But if you say science of sound to a recording engineer, they're going to say, what was that? And now they're going to have to sign up for it because it relates to their interests. They have to have it rather than being tangential to their lives, which most liberal arts courses in most universities are. They're not something that's embraced by students, and that is a shame. So that problem needs to be fixed, Mr. Academia.
Yeah, I think part of that problem is the conflict seen between being an artist and being a business person, right? Like, and both of you, I think, alluded to the fact that there's this almost hostility sometimes can be there on the artistic side of selling out towards what's considered to be selling out and so on. So that's one of that's there in place, that this is romanticization of suffering perhaps, or not, to against the greed of capitalism and so on and so forth. But I was wondering if you would comment on whether there is any truth, not in that notion necessarily, but in the notion of is this sort of hyper focus of business and the creative economy leading to an homogenization of differences in creativity, or is creativity being dulled? Are we all being quite similar? Because I mean, a lot of the times on social media, for instance, is a place where people grab a lot of information, and a lot of the time there is mimicking taking place, right? So with TikTok and so on, you see huge sort of boosts of creating your own content come from mimicking, so do you, as experts in the field who've seen it for so long, think, is there any danger of, let's say, a dulling of creativity with all of this exposure, all of this information, where people are seeing others become successful very quickly, or they see, something go viral as a sign of success? I don't actually know if it translates to success, sort of long-term success. So what is there any danger to, so for instance, it makes no sense to me that nobody knows about copyright, because there's really no downside to copywriting your works. Why wouldn't this be taught? Why wouldn't more people know about it? But is there anything to consider at all from your perspective? Seeing both of you have slightly different emphases, right? John on the musical arts and David on the visual arts from the design side. Do you see changes that we're getting less creative as just to be polemic here? Is there anything to be guarded about this that would prevent many artists to even engage in a meaningful manner to their own advantage?
Yeah, it's a great question. Just a quick answer here, which would be, it depends, right? So to me, it's like if we start with the basic notion that John and I start with, the importance of freedom of expression, and then individual creative expression, and then we can nurture at that individual level, then to me, there's, the degrees of freedom are increased, right? In terms of possibilities and what people might do. If, on the other hand, we kind of get into this notion of stay between the lines are our friends kind of drawing course, or whatever it might be, then I think we really can be in trouble, in danger. I do agree with you, Anna, that a lot of social media does enable mimicking, and mimicking is not a bad thing necessarily, unless it takes us to that place where we're so homogenized there's nothing really that interesting. But that goes back to that first point. If we can start with the individual, and we can tap into individual creativity at a much earlier age, and value that and nurture that, I think we'll see even more degrees of freedom, more diversity in the creative endeavors.
I think that's true. Creative education will encourage that, but I think the tools, I don't think there's a risk of homogenization of creative expression, because the tools are available to everybody. Certainly there's going to be trends and this and that, but there's always limitation. But with the availability of tools for every person to express themselves in an inexpensive way, there's so much stuff out there is phenomenal. So I think that the new world is way better than the old world, where you had all these filters and editorial staffs that filtered everything out. We had radio stations and record companies in my world, and that was it. And there was no way to break through. Now you do not need them. You do not need them. So you can express yourself in any way you wish, and however you wish. And I think if we encourage that in children at the youngest age, we will have more. And as you know, Anna, the person that we credit with inspiring us most in that area is Kenneth Robinson. So all you have to do, any human can go to YouTube and listen to one Kenneth Robinson speech and sign up. It's like, okay, I got it, I understand now, and you'll see what's important. I mean, the man is so convincing, it leaves you no place to go, and so encouraging to every person. And that's, if us as teachers can do the same thing, be less judgmental and more encouraging and nourishing, I think that the world will be a better place.
Yeah, I think just to highlight, John, what you're saying is, it's being creative, and tapping in early, and allowing these broader degrees of freedom, but also being informed. So understanding what the platforms are and how the platforms can help you or can really hurt you. I think it's being creative and informed.
And I think that that's what I said to a lot of my students, is that you have to embrace the so-called liberal arts, because they will inform you. David's thinking about talking about another different kind of informed about the monetization, but it's also just to be informed as a person, an educated person, a knowledgeable person about the past and about the projections for the future. And this is why the artists that I worked with, and I worked with a lot of major artists, were very well informed people, despite or irrespective of their educational level. They were curious. Curiosity is the thing that we need to stimulate in our young people, and what we get by the time they get to college is cynicism. So what happened? How did that curiosity, that life, that love of not knowing be turned into the cynicism of knowing? That's got to stop.
Yeah. What can we do about that? I mean, I love the way both of you have talked about creative education as a broad thing. And I do have to say, I love when you said, John, that, creative education, a tautology, in my opinion, which is so true. But if you had to emphasize, and you've talked about so much, but if you were to give, so for me, if I had to think about how do you instantiate creative education, I think part of it from my side is just, we focus a lot on the kids, but the people teaching the kids need to be aware of it as well. And the creativity is seen as this really out of the reach of any person kind of thing. It's certainly not encouraged in schools, certainly not encouraged by, in any sort of, in the infrastructure of the education system. Nobody's rewarded for trying to enhance the creativity of their students, right? So, and I'm sure there are many countries in which this is not, there are much better models out there than perhaps in many parts of the US. But if you could both, as a final point, speak to the essential features of what it means to have a creative education to each of you, maybe 2 or 3, and we can end after that, that would be great.
David.
Yeah, I always love to give John the last word, so this works out well. Yes, Anna, the question of creative education, and I think, and the beautiful work that the Torrance Center does, it's to tackle this in a way where, we're not distilling creative education down to the 5 key points or whatever, but that creative education, it's something, as we know now through our the neurologial science, or different aspects of cognition and how the brain works and so on. It's not that simple. And creation for one person is very different for another person. And so, I think back to when there was this period of time where we had individualized education plans and programs. And one of the things I saw in that I thought was interesting was there was this individual creativity kind of education or training. And I know like Montessori takes that on a little bit, and other education programs take that on. But to me, it has to start with a rethinking of what creative education is, because I don't think where we are today is near where we need to be. And your point about other countries and what they're doing, yeah, we see it different in other places. It just seems that in this country, now that we've kind of focused on testing and test scores and so on, and we've reduced the number of options for students, has really affected this. And so to me, it start with our definition of what we mean by creativity and creativity education and creative expression, and then build from that.
Well, I think, you said, what is creative education? I think the question is, what is education? And so what I would do specifically is I would take a course and if you could work with, say, a math teacher or a science teacher, whatever. Science is kind of naturally creative, but a course that wouldn't, a math course or something, and look at the lesson plans, because all courses and all curricula have lesson plans for the day. So the
Yeah.
question is, how do you look at that and you see how they're teaching what they teach? How can you rethink that so it stimulates questions being asked rather than answers being given?
Mhm.
So just look at specifically, what can we do to look at this slightly differently? We have a creative SWAT team over here who's going to look at this curriculum, and they're
Yeah.
going to say, well, you could do this, you could do this, you could do this. So that the idea is, how do you cause the student to be more curious instead of resistant somehow? So you would just analyze it specifically about the course and the specific lesson plan. Now, I did a thing at the Metropolitan Opera one time with Finland, because they have an amazing music education, arts education world, and it's a very homogeneous population, right? Everybody is exactly the same as everybody else, but except for their creative abilities. So it's not something that you could transfer. I was trying to transfer their theories and methodologies to New York City. New York
Right.
City has 750 languages. How are you going to do that? So it's just not one-to-one. But that society put an emphasis on creative thought and creative expression from day one of the students' lives. So there's your answer. But they figured out this is what you have to do to stimulate that person to be an individual thinker. So it's the essence of democracy. It's like, in my estimation, public education is a right in this country that is not respected as such. And if we are better educated, we might have more respect for each other. Not only that, we wouldn't be so crazy. But so I think that as far as the specific methodology goes, look at lesson plans and look at how to deal with it. But you know as well as I do that the state legislature is affecting education at the earliest age. They are dictating now what can be taught, what cannot be taught, what can be said, and what cannot be said. This is not a good development. So we're going to exactly the opposite direction of the way we should be going. So until that changes, it ain't going to change. And so those kids are still going to go up to be cynical college kids, but they might be something else. There's hope. But I think that it's going to be a complex issue because of the state control over education in that particular location. Got to fix that.
Thank you both. It's great to just really emphasize there was no one solution fits all, no one size fit all kind of solution. It's all context dependent and culture dependent and so on. But if they ever would recruit a creative SWAT team, 3 of us, I'm going to sign both of you on as well. Thank you for the one. That would be such fun. Can you imagine? Gosh, thank you so much for the wonderful, wonderful conversation, John Snyder and David Sutherland. Thank you for your contribution to the 2022 Torrance Festival of Ideas.
Thank you, Anna.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.